Hello. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Lisa Herzig. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist and certified diabetes educator. Welcome to another session on Winning with a Healthy Lifestyle, Virtual Edition Summer 2020. The topic that we are going to cover today is called What are added sugars and are they okay? Before we get started, I want to go ahead and provide you with today's agenda. First of all, I'm going to provide you with an additional video that helps you to do some of these tests that we've been teaching you about over the course of the semester, as well as during the summer session. This one is assessing your own grip strength, and the physical therapist that I have provided this video, they're going to tell you why and how. Secondly, we are going to talk about what are added sugars, what are the current guidelines, how do I meet those guidelines? And then finally, I'm going to leave you with a couple of meditations. One focuses on helping with sleep, another is breathing techniques, and the last is overall relaxation. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and play the video for you on how and why you should measure your hand grip strength.
Hi, I'm Bob Schrupp, physical therapist.
And I'm Brad Heine, physical
And together we're
therapist.
the most famous physical therapists on the internet.
That is in our opinion, Bob.
Right. Today, Brad, we're going to talk about why should you measure your hand grip strength and how do you do it at home?
Sure.
So
How do we do it? Or why should you? Okay, give some examples.
well, let's show the how.
Okay.
Let's skip to the how.
All right.
Okay, the first thing you can do, we use is a dynamometer. Now this thing costs about $280, so we don't expect that you're going to use this, but you squeeze on this and it actually, Lonnie, you can see this, but it makes the needle move. You see any of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see it, Bob.
All right. There's also a cheaper version on Amazon, and you spend about $25, which might be worth the cost.
Yeah, we've never seen one, so we don't really know
if they're reliable
Right.
or not.
But being a cheapskate that I am, I'm thinking this next idea is where I'm going.
Right. All you're gonna do is take your bathroom scale at home, especially if you have, what is it, the analog. You might be able to do it with a digital too if you find the pressure points on
Right.
it.
But
So-
these cheaper ones, a lot of people have these analogs. So.
Yep. So all you're gonna do is one thing when you measure grip strength, you want to do it the same every time because you're going to establish a baseline.
Good consistency. How
Yeah.
you grip it, where.
So one thing you want to do is you keep your elbow at a right angle,
Sure.
always, and at your side.
Mhm.
And I'm going to squeeze with one side to start off with.
Here.
You see that, Lonnie?
Yeah, let's just do it like this. just
Okay,
so I
there
can
you
see
go.
it. I'm
Yeah.
going to squeeze with my left hand.
You see it, Lonnie, or is it too close?
Too close.
Too far. Okay, you squeeze with one hand.
This is my left hand over here.
How many pounds did you got?
Oh, we got.
60.
Okay,
Okay,
now
let's see. Okay, right side. Okay, right side's only 50.
Well, whatever, Bob. You got a bad scale there.
Okay, ready? Here's my left.
Ooh, almost 80, Bob.
How
You
much
are
am I right?
strong. 81, 82. Wow.
Strong like bull. Who's
Yeah.
strong like bull?
Yeah.
All right.
Give me that thing.
Why are you going to want to measure your grip strength, Brad?
Okay. As far as in therapy, I always do it after an injury, whether it's a shoulder, elbow, hand, or wrist. It's a good time to measure it, to see where it is, and then measure it a week later and see how it's coming along.
If you've had carpal tunnel
Sure,
syndrome,
you bet.
or if you have it now, even it's an indicator. If you show how much weaker the one side, it
Right.
might be an indication it's time for surgery. Or it gives you that baseline so you can know if you're getting stronger.
Right. If you're starting a weightlifting program, you want to get strong like bull, and you want to check that and get some numbers going. It's a great way to do it.
And if you're a tennis player or
Sure.
a rock climber or a wrestler,
Sure.
you were a wrestler.
Yeah.
So these are all good things to give you a good baseline of where you are to see if you're getting stronger or not. If you're worried about you're having a neurological issue going on, like carpal tunnel syndrome,
Sure.
this would be a good time too.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on. So as you're thinking about this presentation that I'm sharing with you today, I want you to think about and take a mental inventory of perhaps some of the foods that you've had recently or have had in the last few months. So let's think about all the different soft drinks. We know that soft drinks have a lot of added sugar to it. I know we've talked about the health benefits of chocolate. Chocolate has some of those feelings that help our brain have a sense of amore or feeling in love. It has a special neurotransmitter effect, also has been found to be positive in reduction of risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. It does have some added fat and it also has some added sugar, so we just want to be mindful of the amount. These different types of things, candies and cupcakes and donuts, we know that those have added sugar. Not only do they have added sugar, they have added fat, and they also have added calories as well. So let's think about how much sugar we are actually eating. So if you think about many, many years ago, during the early 19th century, the average American was only consuming 2 pounds of sugar on average per year. Looking over at that picture to the right, 1 pound of granulated sugar contains about 2 1/4 cups, so double that for the 2 pounds. In 1999, we saw a surge in the amount of sugar that was becoming consumed by Americans, and we saw that it jumped from 2 pounds of sugar per year to 26.7 teaspoons of sugar on a daily basis. This had to do with the increase in number of foods that were being processed, packaged foods, processed foods, snack type foods, where sugar was one of the key ingredients. Currently, we found that US consumers are eating about 152 pounds of sugar per year. That equals out to about 3 pounds per week. And we know that it has a lot to do with the amount of sugar sweetened beverages, also energy drinks that people are consuming. And we cannot forget the amount of larger portion sizes. They just aren't what they used to be back in the day, as well as people are drinking more of their calories. And we find that a lot of the sugar calories are in our beverages. So sugars in the diet, they can both occur naturally or added. We know that natural sugars are typically found in fruits and milk, and added sugars are what happens during the processing or putting foods together. They were once whole foods, they become processed. As they become processed, there's additional ingredients that are added to the original food. So naturally occurring foods can be found in fructose, which is also known as fruit sugar. Looking at bullet point E, you'll see that it is slowly absorbed into the bloodstream because it takes a little bit longer to process fructose than it does glucose. Glucose is what is found in white table sugar. Glucose shows up pretty quickly, fructose takes a little bit longer, and here's the good news at the end of the day. The more fruit you eat, the more high fiber that's attached to these types of foods, the longer it takes even for that food to show up into blood sugar, which is really good news for our individuals who might have low blood sugar or high blood sugar. Anytime we can slow down those foods dropping into the bloodstream is a positive. I do want to bring your attention to milk. Milk has what's called lactose. Lactose is a naturally occurring sugar. It is referred to as a milk sugar. Basically, it has a lower glycemic index, which basically means that it takes a little bit longer to show up as blood sugar. It also is coupled with protein and sometimes added fat, which therefore takes a longer period of time for that too to show up. The only downside with the lactose is that oftentimes people will start having problems like gas or bloatedness, constipation, diarrhea, headaches. It's because they have what's called a lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance basically means it is not an allergy. It is not a food allergy. It just means our bodies don't have adequate amounts of enzymes, or as we age, the enzymes are no longer present to be able to handle that type of milk sugar. And therefore we start to have GI or gastrointestinal problems that occur. So the cure is to eliminate it out of the diet, and or maybe practice a little bit and see how much you can tolerate. Maybe you can tolerate a little bit. When you have a lot, then it starts to be more of a problem. Maybe you can tolerate yogurt, kefir, They also have lactose-free milks on the market. They have a milk that's called Lactaid. They also have another milk that's called Fairlife. The Fairlife is what we call an ultra filtered milk, where there is carbohydrates removed and complete lactose is removed as well. I work a lot with my patients in providing these alternatives, especially those with blood sugar irregularities like diabetes, and they seem to be able to handle that well. You'll see over on the right, honey, agave, fruit, and most of your root vegetables do have some level of sugar. So what does added sugar mean? Without going into reading all of this, I just want to bring your attention to the fact that added sugars are added during the processing or packaging. They may be sugar-free, they may have mono or disaccharides, syrups, honeys, they may have concentrated fruit or vegetable juices. So these are just things that are added to the food during the processing or packaging, hence the word added sugars. And we'll be talking more about that throughout the presentation. Added sugars, here's just a highlight. The only other thing I want to add is added sugars can be counted as to what we add at the table. So typically you'll see that there has been a long history of a household staple. Typically people may sprinkle some type of sweetener on their whole grain cereals because they just are after a slighter, sweeter taste, or they may stir it into their coffee. Take-home message here is think about, instead of putting a sugar, maybe a sugar alternative like a Splenda or an Equal or a Stevia, or take the whole fruit like the blueberries, the peaches, or the strawberries or bananas and cut those up and add those to your cereal. Therefore, adding more nutrition, taste, and also adding to that sweetness. So here's a picture. I like this. It's a visual display of sugar cubes that are equivalent to the amount of sugar. Each one of those sugar cubes equals a teaspoon. So some of those more concentrated sugary type foods that we would expect have a much higher sugar content than others. So this just kind of gives you an idea of common typical foods that contain added sugars to them. This I thought was very interesting. There are a couple of charts listed here for you. Just some additional names for added sugars, things that we may not even be able to pronounce or know what they are or the point of where they came from. But just to point out a few: brown sugar, carob syrup, coconut sugar. I've seen that quite a bit added in the more natural foods. Invert sugar, malt, white sugar, raw sugar, rice syrup. So really start reading those labels. The other one, number 42, I want to point out is that high fructose corn syrup. It's also in the left-hand chart as well, the HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. And what we found with high fructose corn syrup is that it's one of those bad guys that has really led to weight gain, especially in our children. So let me go ahead and continue. Why are sugars added? Sugars are added because it can add flavor to our foods, making them more appetizing, and we're always after something that tastes really good. It also gives baked goods flavor, texture, it can enhance the color, and then furthermore, in many of the food preparation or food companies, they use sugar as a preservative. So why should we limit added sugars? I just really want to highlight some of the key points is that added sugars really don't give us much nutrition. They contribute to zero nutrients, which basically means they're not giving us vitamins, they're not giving us minerals, they're not giving us protein. They are giving us calories, and we know if we're not burning those calories, if we're not using those calories, and we're eating more than what our body can tolerate, then that can lead to that extra weight. So really, as I go through this presentation and talk to you about these key points, be mindful of what your sugar budget is, and I will give you some recommendations to help with that process for you to figure out what the overall budget is. For those of you who want to calculate and figure out how do we get these calories from sugar, and keep in mind this is just sugar. This doesn't take into account the total calories for the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates, those types of things. This is just sugar. So each sugar gram is 4 calories. If there are 15 grams of added sugar, we take 15 times 4, that gives us 60 calories. And just really the take-home message I have listed there, it does not include other calories from other ingredients. So then we'd have to take that 60 plus, and that's where we can get that 300, 400, 500 calories per serving. We'll go over that in a little bit too as I go over the labels for you. So here are some talking points also as to why we really are trying to limit the amount of added sugars in our diet. And you'll see there, poor nutrition can lead to, as I mentioned, zero food nutrients. It can increase the amount of calories, add to extra pounds, add to extra weight gain in that midsection area, increase heart rate because there's extra weight gain. They essentially, added sugars result in poor nutrition and have relatively no nutritional value. As mentioned, it can cause weight gain. Added sugars are a possible factor because it's just calories on top of calories on top of calories. Increased triglycerides, this is very interesting. Our body will take what it needs and the rest is going to be stored into our fat cells. And it doesn't matter what form it came in, our bodies will use what it needs and the rest will go to fat storage. As they're transferring in our blood, what happens is we have more fat circulating, and that's what can lead to diabetes or heart disease. So we really want to be good, efficient burners of the calories, and we want to be careful how much excess we are storing. And we know that if we're eating added sugars, that does lead to excess calories, and that can lead to an increased risk for diabetes or heart disease, especially if there is a family history, and age, unfortunately, as well, puts us at a greater risk. Tooth decay, I think this goes without saying. We need to make sure that we are using good oral hygiene because those sugars will allow that bacteria to multiply and grow, and that increases the number of potential cavities. So now that you've understood what they are, why we don't want to do it, or at least limit the amount, let's start to look at the overall guidelines that we have provided through the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2015-2020, and also the American Heart Association. You'll see on the right-hand side, daily added sugar limit for men, no more than 9 teaspoons. That's about 36 grams total. For women, no more than 6 teaspoons, and that's about 25 grams. And that's total throughout the whole entire day. That includes added sugars and what you find on the label as well. So the dietary guidelines, they tell us that it's recommended no more than 10%. So, both of these are guidelines for us to be able to follow. Of course, if you are an athlete, you might have a little bit more room, but if somebody is really trying to manage their weight, watch what they eat, my recommendations are to stay on the lower side. So you'll see there an example of somebody who has 2,000 calories, should have no more than 200 calories per day. That should come from those added calories, and that equals that 10% or less. So interesting enough, look at this particular chart. It tells you the calories in teaspoons of sugar in some more common beverages. And this is from the Nutrition Source. So cranberry juice cocktail has 12 teaspoons of sugar. And the thing about the cranberry juice cocktail, if you've ever had cranberry juice, it's pretty tart. So we've got to add a lot of sugar to balance out that tartness. Anything that says cocktail or punch, then you really want to make sure that you're looking at it because you know it is not 100% juice. Sometimes when we take people on grocery store tours, we'll have them grab a bottle of juice or what they think is juice. They'll turn it over and the label says contains 10% of juice or less. So you really got to pay attention to what those labels say because that will help you to be a smarter shopper. So as a consumer, ask yourself, what can I do to limit my added sugar intake? I like this picture. It has a picture of the avocado, which is a good source of fat. It has a picture of cottage cheese, which is a good source of protein. It has a picture of the sesame seeds, which is another good source of fat plus fiber, and then it has the rice cake underneath. So it's a perfect balance of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates all working together to be able to provide our bodies with proper nutrition. Let's go ahead and move on. So I have some more talking points to provide for you to help you so that you can manage your overall sugar intake. Drinking water, unsweetened tea or other coffee beverages, look for those non-nutritive sweeteners. That's the green packet, which is stevia, the yellow packet, which is Splenda, and the blue packet, which is Equal. And then sometimes people still use the pink packet, which is the saccharin. Be creative, add fruit to your water. We've talked about that before with the infusion of the fruit or the spices. You can use lemon balm, you can use mint, you can use fresh basil, put in some cucumbers, strawberries, oranges, lemons, limes, lots of ways in which we can infuse our fruit. There's also a water beverage that has a hint of a fruit flavor. It's called Hint, H-I-N-T, and it has no sugar added, but it's got a really, really nice flavor. No artificial sweeteners as well, if that's something that you are concerned about. Continuing, select beverages not only are sugar-free, but you also want to find those that are low-fat and fat-free because all of those beverages are added calories. All right, you want for dessert or snack, you can choose fresh fruits as opposed to your packaged foods. They have those little Sargento packs that have a nice mix of little cheese cubes with some dried fruit, nuts, and sometimes you can see those little fruit packs with grapes mixed with carrots or cherry tomatoes. We encourage you to have your fruit every day, 1 to 3 servings, but please make sure that when you are choosing your fruit servings that you're sticking with those medium handheld pieces of fruit and they fit nicely in the palm of your hand. They provide those antioxidants, those vitamins, vitamin C, beta carotene, good sources of fiber, which, as we've talked about before, keeps you healthy, keeps me happy that you're healthy because you're happy as well. If other sweet desserts and snack options are selected, try to pick those in moderation. I know it's not realistic to say, oh my gosh, don't ever eat a sweet dessert again. That is highly unlikely, very unrealistic, but just the way you can get around it is maybe you pick 1 day a week where you can eat whatever you want. Perhaps you monitor it by the actual portion size, so you give yourself a little dose, and then you may also want to have a bigger piece of pie or some of that fresh berry cobbler with those yummy, yummy blueberries on the market right now. Maybe you go for a 15-minute longer walk or do some stretching or strength training for a little bit longer. All right, let's move on. So what's new? I promised that I was going to go ahead and focus on the food label. First of all, I'd like to bring your attention to where the arrow came up to calories. It's 230 calories for this particular food, and it is based on 1 serving size. What I like about the new food label is they made the serving sizes bigger, they made the calories bigger, and they made it less difficult or easier, sorry, I was trying to find the words, easier for us to be able to follow and make practical and utilize as our daily routine. So serving size is 2/3 cup. There's 8 servings. So if you were to have all 8 servings of this at 230 calories a piece, let's do the math. I'm pulling out my calculator. So 230 times 8 equals, so that would be 1,840 calories. Some of us aren't even allowed that budget per day. So you'll see over on the right-hand side, eating too many calories is linked to overweight, obesity, and with that, increases your risk for certain cardiometabolic diseases. When I make reference to cardiometabolic, I'm talking about heart disease, blood pressure, stroke. I'm also talking about diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and a lot of it has to do with increase in weight. More so specifically, and we'll probably be talking about this over a couple of the other sessions, but more so that belly fat. So really pay attention to what the calories are. Secondly, I want you to go ahead and check out the foods and make those choices for lower in saturated fat and sodium, and you'll see keep your trans fats to 0 or as low as possible. Just to give you a heads up, my next presentation that I will be doing will be talking about practical tips for use of sodium. All right, then let's bring your attention over there to next where it says total carbohydrates. The total carbohydrates for this particular product for 2/3 of the cup is 37 grams of carbs. Then it indents for dietary fiber 4 and total sugars for 12. Under the total sugars, this is the part that's new. Under the total sugars, you'll says includes 10 grams of added sugar. We didn't have this before. All we had was total sugars. So we're thinking of that 37, there's 12 grams of sugar, but a lot of that is the natural source of sugar. Now we know how much during the processing and packing sugar has been added. That's why I really like this tool. I've been using it quite a bit with my patients. So out of the total sugars, 10 of those come from added sugars. So I would tell somebody, go ahead and keep your budget. If that falls within it, then keep it. If not, get rid of this and find a product that is similar to it, but has less added sugar. Okay, so hopefully this will help you. Also too, I just want to point out how important it is to make sure that you're eating enough fiber, because the fiber helps prevent against all of those GI problems like constipation. And when we have constipation, then we have a whole other risk factor for potential colon cancer. But we can talk about that at a later date. So this just gives you another example, same kind of thing, 10 grams of added sugar. You'll see the original label on the left-hand side did not have that, and the new label has it on the right. If you'll see down there, the talking point is starting Jan 1, 2021. You will see this. It will be mandatory for all labels to use this. Right now, they're giving the food companies an opportunity to be able to slowly transition over. This is a huge undertaking, costs a lot of money. So that's why the Food and Drug Administration is giving them time to be able to roll out these new labels. Not to mention, they got to go back to the analysis and find out exactly how many grams are added to those sugars. So be on the lookout. I've already seen quite a few labels that include the new one. So it's a good tool, trust me on that one. Healthy Eating Plan by the Harvard Medical School. Got my little heart up there just to emphasize how important it is. This is very similar to the My Plate by the USDA. You want to make sure that you're eating adequate vegetables on a daily basis. You want to eat the colors of the rainbow for both your fruits and your vegetables. They provide those antioxidants, vitamin C, beta carotene. Don't think that white is a bad word. You've got cauliflower as an example. If you're going to eat a potato, then watch the portion sizes, eat smaller amounts, and eat the skin. It slows down the release of those carbohydrates turning into blood sugar. So vegetables are, you want to make sure that you're eating cooked vegetables. You also want to eat the raw vegetables. The raw make up for the nutrients that could potentially be lost, like vitamin C, during the cooking process. When you cook your vegetables, you can start to break down some of those fibrous chains, so some of your minerals like calcium and iron can be released, because it's really hard sometimes when those fibers bind them. Looking up at the brown section, whole grains, you want to eat 3 1-ounce servings of 100% whole grain on a daily basis. These include 100% whole wheat. They would not include wheat or stone ground or bran. Those do not necessarily have that 100%. You want to limit refined grains like the white rice and the white bread. Doesn't mean, we're not saying here you can't ever have it. We just want to make sure that within your budget, you're choosing the whole grains first, and whatever you got left over, just be mindful of your calorie budget. Finally, looking at the healthy protein, just watch the sodium content. We'll be talking about that in our next lecture. Choose fresh, grill, bake, broil, watch what you add to it. Watch the bacon, cold cuts, and other processed meats, as I mentioned, because of the added sodium content. Looking up at the top, using healthy oils, olive oil, canola oil, Evo extra virgin olive oil. You can drizzle that on your salad. You can add the nuts, the seeds. You can add avocado. You want to keep your trans fats, which you can find that on your label, as low as possible, because what that does is it negatively affects your cholesterol and your good HDLs and increases LDLs. Finally, on this little healthy eating plate, you want to make sure you're drinking water, tea, or coffee with little or no added sugar. You want to choose your milk or non-dairy sources as fat-free or low-fat, and then just really watch any added sugar, as we've talked about, using those non-nutritive sweeteners in place of added sugar. So if we think about this, we really want to advocate for change. We want you to, as I mentioned, as we're talking about this, think about what you eat currently. How can you start to make these small little baby steps? And that's what I'm going to present for you right now, some baby steps, because I know sometimes we can't do it all at once. Watch your morning cup of joe or tea. If you're one that adds sugar to it, maybe start adding half of it. Maybe go ahead and add a non-nutritive sweetener, or maybe add to your tea, add a little bit of a 100% fruit juice to it instead, or try to go just with the cup of joe or the tea with no added sweetener. Know your food labels. We talked about that. We went over the food label. Use the opportunity to review this PowerPoint again, this recording, so that you can go back and look at it one more time. Swap a store version if it's something like a go-to, you absolutely love it, but you're really trying to cut back on your added sugar. Try to make it homemade instead. I did have a presentation last time about decreasing fat and gave you a whole bunch of fun little recipes that you could use for snacks. Stick to fresh fruits. Just know that dried fruit has a higher concentration of sugar, so you just want to make sure that you're being mindful of how much that you're eating. Combine it with those pumpkin seeds, combine it with the chia seeds, the almonds, the cashews. Choose the dry roasted or the raw. The oil roasted, you're adding more fat to fat, and try to get it sodium free or salt free, especially if you have a salt sensitivity. Make sure you are getting enough protein. When you combine these protein sources with your sugar choices, it really helps with a slower rise in your blood sugars and makes for happier moods at the end of the day. Keep an eye on your smoothies. Sometimes we tend to add lots and lots and lots of fruit to our smoothies plus juice, and then we end up having 1,000 calories, and over 75% of that comes from added sugars. Swap out soda for water, flavored bubbly water, or make your own infused water, what we talked about. And reach for those fresh fruits and vegetables. Have them already cut up, buy them cut up, keep them in the refrigerator so that they're already available for you. And then once again, as we talked about, add that fresh fruit to your unsweetened cereals. Buy that milk that is lactose free and a higher protein, and you get a nice combination and balance of your macros. All right, so thinking about all of this, I really want to emphasize the importance of starting slow. Don't feel like you have to go in there and just do a complete makeover of your cabinets, your pantry, your refrigerator, and throw everything out. Just start putting a plan together. Be mindful of your sugar swaps. You know, what can you do? Get rid of the cookies. Maybe next time you go to the grocery store, send somebody to the grocery store, or someone delivers, don't put cookies on the list. Maybe make your own homemade cookies and use an applesauce or a prune paste, or make a banana bread or a zucchini bread, and start to utilize some of those alternative sweeteners or cut down on the amounts. Your taste preferences over time for sweetness will change. You just have to be patient and give it time. All right, some more suggestions here. Watch out for healthy options, right? Because what happens sometimes, a healthier option, they may take the sugar out, they may take the fat out, but then they might swap something else that makes it quote unquote healthy, but it's packed full of something else, which gets it out of balance. So just be a good detective. Read your labels, look at the list of ingredients, and be mindful of what the claims are on the box. Sugar is usually added to improve taste. Go natural as much as you can. Stick to real foods. Less is more. Stick to the foods with shorter ingredients list, because then you can understand, get through it, excuse me, and that helps you to make overall better choices. The more ingredients, the greater chances for those added sweeteners. Remember that long list of alternative names for sugars that I had gone over already. You don't have to always eat the whole thing. Cut it in half, cut it in fours, share a meal, take home half of it, only prepare half of it, meal prep ahead of time, and make smaller, meal prep smaller portions up front so that you are less tempted. Sometimes people make bigger things because they're really hungry, and then they end up eating all of it because at some point in their life, they were signed up for a lifetime membership of Clean Plate Club. We don't have to do that. Remember to be mindful of your serving sizes, right? And then portion control helps you with overall decreased risk for, as I mentioned, obesity, heart disease, and diabetes, which are those cardiometabolic diseases. Within that too, eating real food, you're increasing the fiber content, you're reducing those not so healthy carbohydrates for you, and you also have a opportunity to be able to get those pre and probiotics, which are really good for gut health. All right, so those are some topics and tips that I have for you today. I do hope that those were helpful. I'm going to go ahead and leave you with the opportunity at your leisure. Here is a Sleepcast by Headspace, a sleeping meditation, and then I'm going to go ahead and flip to the next couple of slides. You will see here is a 5-minute meditation you can do anywhere, and then also here's a mindful breathing meditation. Either one are really good. If you feel like you need to take a break, stand up, walk away from work, go lie down. You can do it sitting in your chair. You can lie on the floor, get a yoga mat. You can roll your head side to side. Really, really, really nice meditation. So that keeps within the program that we're trying to give you tools to be able to help keep it mindful, keep it real, and also provide you with meditation at the end. So with that said, I wanted to go ahead and leave you with this. This little quote I did not make up. I heard it on CNN and I love it. So I've been using it quite a bit, giving them credit. It's take the ill out of illness and add the well to wellness. All right, so with that, be well, be safe. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch with me, Dr. Herzig, and my email address is lherzig@csufresno.edu. Be more than welcome to answer some questions. Thank you so much and be safe.